Hi, it's Jack, and this is the podcast version of this episode. If you want to read the words as they're being analysed, then if you're on Spotify, you can become a subscriber of this channel or head over to the YouTube channel. And on both platforms, you can also sign up to get exclusive episodes and early access to the regular weekly episodes too. What do you think is going on in someone's mind if they've used the phrase, "I don't want to be caught out"? Especially those two words, caught out. What's that person thinking? What's that person feeling? And what kind of situation is the person in if they say that? Well, those words have been used by Michael Kelley in the investigation into the death of Michael Gaine. And that's what we're going to look at in this episode of Never a Truer Word, where we look at the words that people choose to use to see if they're telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And what I do here is different from anywhere else. I only look at the words spoken. I strip away everything else, anything else we might know about the case, and just look at the words. Then use my process of statement investigation to look and see if we can find potential deception, potentially the truth, and where someone's motivations might lie. It's a technique that I use with investigators, with the media, and also with corporate clients to get a deep understanding of what is being said. Michael Gaine went missing in March this year. He's a farmer in Ireland. He was last seen in March, and then recently his body parts have been found on that farm. Michael Kelley is a guy who's worked on the farm for 3 years with Michael Gaine and has been spoken to by the police, although he denies any wrongdoing. I do have an episode where I look at the first interview that Michael Kelley gave to the press, his thoughts on whether he's considered a suspect. Did he do it or not? And also the fact he thinks he's running from some sort of international crime ring. I break down his statements in that episode if you want to take that in. But he's given another interview to the press, and I think it's very worth digging into the words that he uses in that interview. So let's start by looking at him talking about grieving. So I think he's asked a question going into it about, are you grieving? Is he grieving, is what the article says. And this is his response. "Listen, man, I'm a very private person and I'm not going to get into that in the media. You know, that's private. You can tell them I put fucking ashes on my forehead. I don't fucking care. You know what I mean? Stop. Come on, man. I'm not playing out anything for the public." So let's just assume the question he was asked there is, are you grieving? He starts with, "Listen, man." Now that's an attempt to gain control of the conversation, to say what's coming up is very important. You have to listen to it. So we've got something here that suggests to me either he's a bit of a controlling personality, which is why he can start with "Listen, man," or it's very important for him that what he's about to say is listened to. Now, why is that? Potentially there's some deception going on here, or potentially there's some diversion or some dodging going on here. So look how negative he is in all of this statement. He doesn't tell us anything that is, he just tells us lots of things that isn't. "I'm a very private person." Now that's telling us he is a private person, but also saying there's a lot I'm not going to tell you. And I'm not going to get into that. So that's all negative. He's telling us he's not going to get into that. I don't fucking care. Now, when people tell you they don't care, especially, but when people tell you they don't anything, the chances are they do, or at least the concept of them doing that thing is high up in their mind because they're negating it there. So I do think he cares. I'm just more negative. Stop. Come on, man. I'm not playing out anything for the public. So all he's doing here is telling us what doesn't exist, what is not happening. He's not going to get into that with the public. And the question is, are you grieving? Well, he worked with the guy for 3 years. It would be a very, very natural thing for him to be grieving here. So why is he not just saying, yeah, I'm grieving. I worked with this guy for 3 years. He's no longer with us. He seems to have been killed in the most brutal fashion. Yeah, I'm grieving. But he doesn't say that at all. He tells us what's not happening anywhere. Also, he talks about ashes on my forehead. Now, that is something that's quite visceral around the fact that this guy is dead. There may be ashes produced from that death, and he's making some sort of light-hearted comment about putting them on his forehead. It's a very odd thing. All I can take from that is he's not grieving for some reason. He is not going through any of the stages of grief for Michael Gaine whatsoever. And it's incredibly negative. He tells us all the things that are not happening. He doesn't tell us what is happening. Now, the article says, asked how he felt about what happened to Mr. Gaine, Mr. Kelley said, "Yeah, well, I never thought that he would end up that way. And it's a tragedy. I take it as a tragedy." So we have some downplaying of what's happened to Michael Gaine here, which is Michael Gaine was brutally murdered in a really, really bad way. And he's downplayed it to end up that way, as if he is avoiding talking about the severity of what had happened. Now, why would that be? Well, it could be he finds it hard to talk about. The other thing is, look, guilty people will often downplay the severity of what they've done. I use this example a lot, but if you ask, did you steal that money? And the person answering downplays the severity and says, I didn't take that money. There's a chance that they did steal the money because they're downplaying the severity of what has happened. Is that what's going on here? Is that why he's downplaying the severity? And instead of saying, I never thought he would be brutally and violently murdered, he says, I never thought he would end up that way. And it's a tragedy. I take it as a tragedy. He's asked how he felt about what happened to Mr. Gaine, and there are no feelings expressed. Once again, he's not taking on the question. This guy, Michael Kelley, is avoiding talking about emotional things here. Again, there's just no emotions expressed. So just in those very two quick answers, we can see that he comes across as very, very cold around all of this. Not an emotional person at all. Or is he not letting us into those feelings that he has got? Is he keeping these feelings closed away because he doesn't want it to let anyone close to the true emotions inside of the guy? We then go on to a section which is when he last saw him. So this is when Michael Kelley last saw Michael Gaine. And this is where he uses that phrase. He says, I don't want to get caught out. I think it was the 20th. I'd have to have a calendar in front of me. It was the 10 o'clock hour. At some point in the 10 o'clock hour. Now, who says they don't want to get caught out? People who can get caught out. If you can't get caught out, if you are just saying the truth and recalling events as you know them, you can't get caught out. Someone might pick holes in it, someone might be pedantic in it, but he says, I don't want to get caught out. Now, maybe the intention that he wants to get is, I want to say the right thing. He wants to come across as just wanting to be accurate, especially if he's under a bit of suspicion, then he may want to be accurate. In which case, he could say something like that. I want to get this right, or I don't want to give you bad information, or I'm not sure, I think it was the 20th. But he uses that phrase, caught out. If you feel that you can get caught out, then you must feel there is reasons that you could get caught out. It's not a word or two words. It's not a phrase I would expect to be used by someone who's just truthfully answering the questions they are asked. It's used by someone, again, who is being guarded about what they say. And why is he being guarded about what he says? He's under a lot of suspicion. Maybe he has something to hide. So he says this line about having to have a calendar in front of him, and it was the 10 o'clock hour, at some point in the 10 o'clock hour. Now, that's a little bit vague, but really, this is now going back to something that was several months ago. So maybe he just does not have this exact recollection and is able to look at his watch and go, it was exactly that time. So that's fine. It is vague. I'll note that, but I'm not going, that is uber suspicious that he did that. He says he was going to meet a man about a tractor. He was supposedly coming back that night. That word supposedly got me interested. It's not he said to me he was coming back that night, or he said he was coming back later. Supposedly has this element of suspicion in it, doesn't it? That we use, the guy was supposedly coming to fix the car this morning. He supposedly was going to say to me where he wanted to go on holiday, but he hasn't. Supposedly, it's very strange wording to use. We know that Michael Gaine didn't come back that night, at least in the version of the story Michael Kelley's telling, but he was supposedly coming back that night. That's a line of suspicion there. But obviously this guy got murdered, so there's no way of being suspicious about him. So why he was supposedly coming back that night? And does it open up the thought process that he came back at a different time, that he didn't come back that night? Now we get into him talking about how he thinks the crime could have happened. Now, I don't know what question he was asked. This is from a press article where the quotes are just given that Michael Kelley said, and so we don't know the questions that were asked. So I'd be really interested in the question that got this response. He says, it's possible somebody could have used a firearm to direct him to walk away into the, cover up the copious amount of trees and wilderness. So this is him talking about Michael Gaine being killed, I guess, or abducted maybe on the farm. Now, Why does he think this is where it happened? Because as far as I know, Michael Gaine drove off. He was seen in town, and then his body parts turned up on the farm, but no one knows what's happened in between there. But for some reason, Michael Kelley thinks that things happened on the farm. Why does he think that's where it happened? That's the question I have. It's not a question of pointing a finger and accusing him, but once more, strange wording from Michael Kelley. And it's possible somebody could have used a firearm, not the killer or the killers, just somebody there. And you'll notice that somebody, well, look, somebody could be me, could be you, because somebody is just a person. Could also be Michael Kelley. So he doesn't take any steps to distance himself from the person that did that. He doesn't say it's possible the killer could have used a firearm to walk him into the, cover up with the copious amounts of trees and wilderness. So it's pointed out to Mr. Kelley that he was in all likelihood on the land at the same time Mr. Gaine was killed there. And Michael Kelley says, it seems plausible to suggest that this is the case. I want to point out that the property is very large, but not only that, the terrain is very varied. You could be 50 yards away from the barn and invisible down in the river valley. There's so much speculation, I don't want to enter into speculation. So he admits that it's plausible that he was on the land at the time that Michael Gaine was killed. That's fine, but it is plausible to suggest that, which is a very logic-related word there. Almost looking at this like a process rather than an event, an emotional thing that happened in his life. He talks about you could be 50 yards away from the barn and invisible down the river valley, so he doesn't put himself there in that story. That's interesting. Why is that? Why doesn't he say, yeah, I could have been 50 yards away from the barn down in the river valley and not known anything that was happened? Or on the flip side, I could have been in the river valley and I would not know what was happening in the barn. I would not have known what was happening in those slurry tanks or anything like that. He doesn't say that. He doesn't talk about himself. He talks about you. And then he says, there's so much speculation. I don't want to enter into speculation. You don't want to enter into speculation? It's possible somebody could have used a firearm to direct him to walk away into the, cover up the copious amounts of trees and wilderness. That's what he's just said. That is speculation. Or is it not speculation, Michael Kelley? Is it more than speculation? Is there some knowledge going on there? Because you said you don't want to enter into speculation. However, seems to speculate. So this part here is very defensive, as you'll see. He is very defensive of anything that says he was close to the murder. Some of it is understandable because he is being questioned about this by the police and maybe he feels he's under a lot of suspicion, but there's some really odd wording in that. Supposedly come back. I don't want to get caught out. It's plausible that could be the case. All very strange bits of wording around that. Listen, by the way, do you ever feel you're not being told the full story? You might feel that here with the words of Michael Kelley, but you're right. It's happening to you all the time and all around us as well. And I'm here to give us the key to seeing deeper because I want you to hear the word with new ears. And I'm on a mission to share this skill with you and as many people as possible. So if you want to unlock that secret, subscribe to this channel or follow this channel. You will be able to get updates as soon as they happen on stories like this. And also there's the archives with a whole load of interesting statements and interviews and interrogations to understand just how people use words when they're telling the truth and when they're being deceptive. So if you want to unlock that secret, do subscribe. And if you know someone who could do with a skill like this, then share this with them. Hit the like button even, that helps it get to them. Recommend it, just pass this on. Because every click I get, every single share, it fuels the fire for this channel. It allows me to dig deeper, to analyze further, and bring this life-changing skill to even more people. So press away. Now, let's get back to the words of Michael Kelley. And this time he's being asked about the funeral. The funeral happened at the weekend, as I record. And he's asked about, will you be there? And he says, no. Well, listen, if I'd been invited, I'm certain I would have made every effort to attend. I mean, can you imagine how inappropriate it would be to gatecrash that funeral? Now, maybe there's a cultural thing going on here, but invites to funerals, are those really a thing? Normally, there's, as far as I know, there's a notice of where the funeral is, and people who want to go and pay their respects attend. Now, I can understand why he would want to avoid going to the funeral. Number one, he doesn't seem to have any emotions around the death. But number two, he might think it's in bad taste for him to turn up, considering everything that he's been through in the questioning there. But he doesn't use those words. He says that he hasn't been invited. Listen, if I'd been invited, I'm certain, so that's convincing us, I'm certain, and then it all disappears into waffle, I would have made every effort to attend. So he doesn't want to go to the funeral at all. Every effort to attend. Even if he was invited, even if someone said, you are welcome to this, he would not have been there. That's what is in there in his words. I've made every effort to attend. You wouldn't have been there at all. I mean, can you imagine how inappropriate it would be to gate crash that funeral? That funeral, that's a distance there. Think about how you refer to cars. The one that crashed into you would be that car. The one you own would be my car. The one the family uses would be the car. But you remember that one that you don't like because it crashed into you, it's that car. Or the one that goes up and down the road making a lot of noise, that car. I mean, can you imagine how inappropriate it would be to gate crash that funeral? Shows that he feels a bit of distance from that funeral, maybe a bit of dislike for that funeral as well. Now, we come to the crux of the matter. In the first episode where I looked at Michael Kelley, I noticed the repetition of themes around home and living places. He said he left a home in Maine. He said he was homeless now that Michael Gaine had been killed. And I wondered if there had been an argument between the two of them. That's very obvious from the words that are in that first interview. I wondered if it had been around living arrangements. And apparently there are local rumours that Mr. Gaine wanted to kick Michael Kelley off the land before Michael Gaine was killed. And that is put to Michael Kelley. And he says, well, if it's true, it's a secret to me because I was never told anything like that. I never heard any plausible reason why. When we were busy working these sheep and cattle and fixing vehicles, I never had any indication he wanted that to stop. Let's break that answer down because there's so much there. The first word there is well. I've had, since I did the last episode and he answered lots of questions with well, lots of people in the comments going, Irish people start lots of questions with well. Well, number one, Michael Kelley isn't Irish, he's American. Number two, well, it does mean you're going to get an explanation. Irish people do it a lot, but it does mean they're giving an explanation. You don't say, what's your name? Well, it's Jack. You just go, Jack. Well is when you're going to tell a bit of a story. Now, Irish people can be very lyrical when they talk, and that's when they'll use a well. I'm going to go into a bit of storytelling here. What I didn't say once was well means the person is lying. When someone starts an answer with the word well, I did not say that means they are lying. I said it means you're getting a bit of an explanation. It's a flag that I'm not going to answer that question quite straightforwardly, and that's what we've got here. Well, if it's true, it's a secret to me. Now, if it is true, so he is open to the possibility that it's true. He just doesn't come out and plainly state, no, Mr. Gaine did not want to kick me off the land. No, he was very happy that I was living there. No, he spoke about wanting me to live there for a long time. He could have said all of these things, but instead he says, if it's true, which says psychologically, it could be true in his mind because he doesn't just push it all away and go, no, that's not what was happening. And if it's true, it's a secret to me because I was never told anything like that. Now, the word never is a red flag for deception word. When someone uses never, just like, well, it doesn't mean they're lying, but it means lying could be occurring, really. Never flags up possible deception. So whenever you hear a never, just dig around what is being said. Never told anything like that. So it's not, I was never told that, is I was never told anything like that. Now that might seem broader, but actually it's avoiding what is going on because like that, just words, comparison words. I was never told that he wanted me off the land, that he wanted me out of my home or anything like that, which would be very specific and taking it head on. Instead it's never told anything like that. Then we've got a weird thing, which is I never heard any plausible reason why. So I never heard any plausible reason why. Well, that's kind of saying that it did happen and he just never was told the reason why. So why is he saying this? I was never told any plausible reason why. I've got the word plausible again in there. He repeats plausible quite a lot. I wonder if he spent a lot of time thinking of plausible things to say. I never, so we've got the word never there, heard any plausible reason why. When we were busy working those sheep and cattle and fixing the vehicles, he says we there, a joint pronoun. That shows some unity between him and Michael Gaine. I think it's the first time I've seen him use we to describe the pair of them. When you think they worked together for 3 years, I might have expected to hear we a lot to describe them. Instead, I've seen this coldness, this lack of emotion, and this two-person concept there. That's the first time I can remember seeing we there, which shows that unity. But I've never heard any plausible reason why, when we were busy working these sheep and cattle, I do think there is something in these rumours that Mr. Gaine wanted to kick him off the land. I never had any indication he wanted that to stop. So we have, I never again. So that says, I never had any indication he wanted that to stop. So again, it's that. So he's not taking it on fully and saying he wanted me living here to stop. It's just that and to stop. But look, we've got another negative answer here. He's telling us everything that didn't happen. I was never told that. I never heard any plausible reason why. I never had any indication. So it's just another negative answer. The only thing that is not negative in all of that is it's true, which is like, yeah, I do believe that there is some veracity in all of that. He says, in my mind, there's an obvious attempt to try me in the public medium, and that's why I spoke to you, because they've been acting in a matter prejudicial to the case, and it reveals their hand a bit, in my opinion, to engage in a cover-up by misdirection. So this is him back on his theme that he's being fitted up by the police in Ireland for some reason over this murder of Michael Gaine. So what does he say there? Well, he starts by saying, in my mind. So this is just a thought that he has. He really has no tangible proof or evidence, and no one else is saying this to him as well. He's just saying in his mind. So it's as if it only exists in his mind. There's nothing in the physical world to back this up. He says there's an obvious attempt to try me in the public medium. Now, if he'd taken the word obvious out of that, in my mind, there's an attempt to try me in the public medium. So he's added the word in obvious, which is a convincer. Hey guys, this is so obvious, you're kind of stupid if you don't believe it. However, it's so obvious, it's only in his mind. It's not anywhere else. So there's an obvious attempt to try me in the public medium, and that's why I spoke to you, because they've been acting in a manner prejudicial to the case. Now, that's a strange thing. Again, I said he was talking in some sort of legal terms. Prejudicial to the case refers, really says that he thinks there is a case going on here. Prejudice applies in court. So is that why he's thinking this is going to go to court? That something is going to happen at some time? That's why he's thinking about prejudicial things to the case. Interesting. And it reveals their hand a bit. Well, again, he's giving me thoughts that in his mind, they do have a hand. They have a hand, and he wants to see it, if that makes sense. He wants to reveal it. It reveals their hands a bit, in my opinion, to engage in a cover-up by misdirection. Not a cover-up by lying, just misdirection there. Strange set of words from Michael Kelley, but lots of them are. So the journalist asked him what exactly he thought was being covered up. And he says, because of what they found, they said that they found human remains. They have clarified that the tissue they found is Michael Gaine. Why have they not said for the record, what they have not said for the record is if they found any other remains. So he's focused back on the remains, which is what he did in the first interview. Now, I notice here he's very close to the investigation, if you know what I mean. He's really going into the detail there. He's not just saying that they found Michael Gaine, he's saying it's the tissue they found is Michael Gaine. And something that happens often in murder cases especially is that the culprit will want to stay very close to the police investigation in order to find out how much information the police have, which directions the investigation is going on, and so on. Is that what's happening here with Michael Kelley? I don't know, but I noticed that in his words very often. He talks quite deeply about the investigation. Again, he says they've clarified the tissue that they have found is Michael Gaine. Now, that is not only detailed about the investigation, it's quite a cold way of saying it as well. They're not saying, I know they found my friend Michael or my boss Michael or the guy I worked with for 3 years with some emotion and feeling. It's very cold and clinical. The tissue that they found is Michael Gaine. Then he talks about more about knowing real detail about the investigation. The way they conducted the search and the things that I saw while living there lead me to suspect that as a possibility. Asked if he was somehow suggesting there were further bodies on Mr. Gaine's land, Michael Kelley says, I'm not saying there are. I'm saying that is a question that has not been adequately answered. It's also possible, maybe with all the metal detectors they used and looking in the caves, that they found an old cache of IRA weapons or explosives or gold. Could have been any of those things. Whatever they found, I'm pretty certain everybody can see they did an unprecedented act with that search. Now, this is something I think that he's done quite a lot, which is he throws out breadcrumbs. So when someone is finding a particular area sensitive to talk about, stressful to talk about, uncomfortable to talk about, they'll start throwing out breadcrumbs, bits of conversation that they hope the person they're talking to picks up on, things they'll be happy talking about. Here, it seems all this speculation going on is what he's very happy talking about. So he's kind of hinted, there may be other body parts there on the farm. The police haven't said there's not. Well, if they only found one body, that's all they would say, Michael Kelley. But however, he's throwing out that to try and get this conversation going and away from himself and the stuff that he feels stressed talking about and on to other things, which is why he talks about metal detectors and the fact it could have been a cache of weapons or explosives or gold. It could have been any of those things, he says. Whatever they found, I'm pretty certain everybody can see they did an unprecedented act with that search. Once again, we've got this I'm pretty certain, which is like the in my mind from earlier, as in this is my thoughts, this is my feelings. And then everybody can see is convincing. Can everybody see that? I didn't see that, so not everybody could see that. When people talk in these absolutes, like talking about everybody or nobody or all the time and things like that, they're trying to really hard to persuade you of these things. He's trying to convince you that this was an unprecedented act. Therefore, it's nothing to do with him. So man, he's just chucking out those breadcrumbs there, hoping that the journalist picks one of them up and starts talking to him about weapons caches or gold or something like that. Then he carries on and he just goes wide here. In my opinion, if President Higgins went missing for 24 hours, you wouldn't have seen that, okay? So whatever is going on up there is connected at the very high levels of power in this country, because it would have taken the very high levels of power to inaugurate a search of that magnitude that quickly. This is not something that evolved or grew into a big search. This is something that started as the most intensive search ever carried out in Ireland, starting at 24 hours and 1 minute after the guy was last seen. So what do we have here? We have just this more breadcrumbs. Something is going on because this search was like nothing he's ever seen before. I'd love to know how many searches for missing people he'd seen before to be able to compare that. And it's just the most intensive search ever carried out in Ireland. Once again, it's these extremes and absolutes he's going to. He doesn't believe this. He's just going large to try and convince us. And then he refers to Michael Gaine as the guy. 24 hours and 1 minute after the guy was last seen. Not Michael, my friend. There's a bit of distance going on there. And then he says, he didn't charge me because it is all nonsense. I do know there is no substance to it, and hence there is no charge based on it. I'm sceptical about that because it seems to me as though if charges were to be forthcoming, it seems to be they would have been immediately after the interrogation. So what do we have going on with this guy now? Right. They didn't charge me because it is all nonsense. It's another absolute. And it's not, they didn't charge me because I didn't do it, or, I've got an alibi or anything like that. It's just, it is all nonsense. They didn't charge me because it is all nonsense. I do know there is no substance to it, and hence there is no charge based on it. So this is a bit more reassuring here. There's no substance to it. There's no charge based on it. If he'd left it there, I'd have been all right. Yeah, it's all nonsense. Doesn't make it sound like, but, there's no substance to it. And then he just sows all this doubt that charges could be coming. In his mind, charges could be coming. I'm sceptical about it because it seems to me as though if charges were to be forthcoming, so this is acknowledging that charges could be forthcoming, he just thought they would be a little bit earlier. It seems they would have been immediately after the interrogation. That's an interesting choice of words, interrogation, because as far as we know, as far as I think the police have said, it was a questioning, which is not quite an interrogation, but he is telling us there he was interrogated by the police there. And it does seem to me that his mind is open to the fact that he could be charged. So listen, what do you think there? What do you think is going on with this guy? He's very cold. He is very cold. He shows no warmth towards Michael Gaine, or even Michael Gaine's family as well, at all, which is strange considering he worked with the guy for 3 years, seemed to be very close to him on a daily basis. It's very, very cold. There's no emotions on show there. He's kept a close eye in the investigation. That is obvious in his words as well, and that is something that I think the police will be noting. But whenever the talk is on himself, it's all that negative stuff. He tells us what's not happening, what isn't going to happen, and he's very keen to move it on to something else, no matter how fantastical that is at times. In the first interview, it was all about international crime. In this second interview, it's all about the fact the search was like nothing this guy had ever seen before for some reason. And once more, in all of that, he doesn't once say that he didn't do it. He doesn't once say he had nothing, he was not involved in any way. I know that if you asked him right now, he would deny any involvement there. But if you look into his words in interview 1, interview 2, there's nothing there that's been published where he says, I did not murder Michael Gaine. What do you think? Let me know in the comments if you can, or let me know on social media. The socials can all be found at neveratruerword.com. By the way, if you want to check out more Irish crime, I do have a podcast series on the murder of Sophie Toscan de Plantier called The Words of West Cork. You will find the links to that at neveratruerword.com as well. And by the way, if you're into your socials, if you join me on Telegraph, that's a great way to talk one-to-one to me about cases like this, or if you want to suggest a case as well. Just go to Never a Truer Word to see how to get in touch and see everything else you can get from Never a Truer Word as well. And we'll see you soon for something new from Never a Truer Word.